Every day, billions of people trust a machine they almost never think about. You pull up to an intersection. The light is red. You stop without hesitation. A few seconds later, it turns green, and you continue on your way. It's such a routine part of life that most of us never stop to ask a simple question. How did it know? How did the traffic light know there was a car waiting? Was someone watching through a camera? Is there a person in a control room deciding when every light should change? Or is it all just one giant timer counting down over and over again? The truth is far more interesting than most people realize. Hidden inside nearly every intersection is a small industrial computer making decisions every second of every day. It's gathering information, following carefully designed rules, and, in many cities, even communicating with other traffic lights miles away. Together, these silent machines keep millions of people moving safely through roads that would otherwise descend into chaos. It's one of the greatest engineering achievements hiding in plain sight. To understand how traffic lights became so intelligent, we first have to go back to a time when they didn't exist at all. Imagine standing at a busy city intersection more than 100 years ago. There are no glowing red, yellow, or green lights hanging overhead. Instead, horses pull heavy wagons loaded with goods, while the first automobiles rattle over uneven streets. Streetcars compete for space with bicycles. Pedestrians wander into the road whenever they find an opening, and every driver believes they should be the next one through the intersection. There are no clear rules, no organized flow, only confusion. As more people bought automobiles in the early 20th century, intersections quickly became one of the most dangerous places in any city. Traffic jams stretched for blocks, accidents became more common, and frustrated drivers argued over who had the right of way. The only real solution was to place police officers in the middle of the intersection. For hours at a time, they directed traffic using whistles, hand signals, and simple signs. They stood in the rain, the summer heat, and winter snowstorms, trying to keep vehicles moving while avoiding collisions. It worked, but only for so long. Cities were growing faster than police departments could keep up. Engineers knew they needed something better. Ironically, the answer had already existed for decades. Not on roads, but on railroads. Long before automobiles became common, trains faced a similar problem. Two locomotives could never safely occupy the same section of track, so railroad companies developed signaling systems to control movement. Large mechanical arms and colored lanterns told engineers when it was safe to proceed and when they needed to stop. Someone eventually asked an obvious question. What if roads had signals too? The first attempts were surprisingly primitive. In 1868, London installed one of the world's earliest traffic signals outside the Houses of Parliament. During the day, large mechanical arms acted much like railroad semaphores. At night, gas-powered lanterns displayed red and green lights. It seemed like the future, until disaster struck. Only weeks after installation, a gas leak caused the signal to explode, seriously injuring the police officer operating it. For years afterward, many cities abandoned the idea entirely. But the automobile wasn't going away. By the early 1900s, cars were becoming cheaper, faster, and far more common. Roads filled with vehicles, and once again, cities searched for a better solution. This time, electricity changed everything. In 1914, Cleveland introduced one of the first electric traffic signals. Instead of relying on gas lamps or mechanical arms,
Electric lights clearly displayed instructions to drivers both day and night. They were brighter, safer, and far more reliable. Soon, another improvement appeared: the yellow light. Today, it seems impossible to imagine traffic signals without it, but adding that third color solved a major problem. Drivers no longer had to guess whether to slam on the brakes or race through an intersection as the light changed. The yellow signal created a brief warning period that dramatically reduced accidents. It was a simple innovation, but sometimes the simplest ideas have the greatest impact. As traffic lights spread across cities around the world, they transformed the way roads worked. Intersections became predictable. Drivers learned what to expect. Traffic flowed more smoothly than ever before. But these early systems had one major weakness: they were completely blind. Every signal operated on nothing more than a timer: green for 30 seconds, yellow for 5, red for 30, then repeat again. It didn't matter if there were hundreds of cars waiting or none at all. The light followed the exact same schedule every hour of every day.
If you've ever sat at an empty intersection late at night, wondering why you're still waiting for a red light to change, you've experienced the downside of those early systems. The traffic light wasn't making a decision. It wasn't watching you. It didn't even know you existed. Engineers quickly realized they needed to solve a new problem. How do you teach a machine to notice the world around it? That answer wouldn't come from bigger timers or brighter lights. It would come from giving intersections something they had never possessed before: the ability to sense. For decades, engineers searched for a way to give traffic lights a simple ability that humans take for granted: awareness. Not intelligence, not artificial intelligence, just the ability to answer one basic question: is anyone actually waiting? At first, the solution seemed almost impossible. Today, we have cameras, radar, and powerful computers. But in the middle of the 20th century, none of those technologies were practical for managing thousands of intersections. The breakthrough came from something most drivers have unknowingly driven over thousands of times: the road itself. The next time you're stopped at a red light, look closely at the pavement beneath your car. You might notice thin rectangular lines cut into the asphalt, almost as if someone had carefully carved a giant rectangle into the road before sealing it back up. Those lines aren't cracks. They aren't repairs. They're one of the most reliable traffic detection systems ever invented. Hidden just beneath the surface is a loop of wire. It's called an induction loop, and despite sounding complicated, the idea behind it is surprisingly elegant. Electricity constantly flows through the wire, creating a small magnetic field above the road. Under normal conditions, that field remains stable. But when a large metal object, like a car or truck, stops directly over the loop, it slightly changes the magnetic field. That tiny change is enough for the traffic signal controller to recognize that a vehicle is waiting. No cameras, no microphones, no internet connection. Just a loop of wire and a bit of physics. It's a remarkably simple system, which is exactly why it's still used today. While technology has advanced dramatically over the last several decades, induction loops remain one of the most dependable ways to detect vehicles. They're unaffected by darkness, rain, fog, or snow, and they can continue working for years with very little maintenance. Of course, they're not perfect. If you've ever heard a motorcyclist complain that a traffic light wouldn't turn green, there's a good chance the induction loop was the reason. Motorcycles contain far less metal than cars or trucks. Depending on where the rider stops, the motorcycle may not disturb the magnetic field enough for the system to detect it. That's why experienced riders often position their bike directly over the edge of the loop rather than in the middle, where the magnetic field is strongest. Some intersections are calibrated well enough to detect almost anything. Others, not so much. As cities grew larger and traffic became more complex, engineers realized they needed something even smarter than a buried wire. What if a traffic light could actually see? Today, many modern intersections use cameras mounted high above the road. But these cameras aren't usually recording drivers the way many people imagine. Their primary purpose isn't law enforcement, it's observation. Software analyzes the live video feed, searching for shapes that resemble vehicles, bicycles, or pedestrians. Instead of recognizing individual people or reading license plates, many systems simply track movement. They estimate how many vehicles are waiting, how long the line has become, and whether traffic is continuing to build. Some cities have gone a step further by replacing cameras with radar sensors. Unlike cameras, radar isn't affected by darkness or bright sunlight. It sends out radio waves that bounce off moving objects and return to the sensor, allowing it to measure both position and speed. Even during heavy rain or dense fog, radar can continue monitoring traffic with impressive accuracy. Other intersections combine several technologies at once. A camera watches the lanes, radar measures movement, an induction loop confirms vehicles have stopped. Each sensor provides another piece of the puzzle. By comparing information from multiple sources, the system becomes far more reliable than relying on a single method alone. But none of these sensors actually make decisions. They're only gathering information. The real decision maker sits quietly beside the road in a gray metal cabinet that most people have walked past without ever noticing. To the average driver, it looks like an ordinary utility box. Inside, however, is the brain of the entire intersection. Control traffic safely. Every second of every day, it receives information from every sensor connected to the intersection. Is there a car waiting to turn left? Has the pedestrian crossing button been pressed? Is traffic beginning to back up on the main road? Has the minimum green time already been reached? Is another traffic light farther down the road expecting vehicles to arrive? The controller processes all of this information in real time before deciding what should happen next. If no cars are waiting on a side street, it may allow the main road to stay green longer. If several pedestrians are waiting to cross, it schedules enough time for them to walk safely across every lane. If traffic suddenly begins building in one direction, it can extend the green light to move more vehicles through the intersection before congestion becomes worse. It's constantly making small adjustments, often without drivers realizing anything unusual is happening. This leads to one of the biggest misconceptions about traffic lights. Many people believe every signal changes independently. In reality, that would create complete chaos. Imagine driving through a city where every traffic light made decisions without considering the next intersection. You'd stop every few hundred feet, accelerate, stop again, and repeat the process over and over. It would waste fuel, increase pollution, frustrate drivers, and create unnecessary traffic jams. So engineers came up with an entirely different idea. Instead of treating every traffic light like an isolated machine, what if they worked together? A single traffic light can control one intersection. But a city is made up of thousands of intersections, connected by millions of journeys. The real challenge was never just making one traffic light smarter. It was teaching an entire network of traffic lights to work together. This is where one of the most fascinating ideas in modern transportation begins: the green wave. If you've ever driven down a major road and noticed that you seem to catch green lights one after another almost as if the city is clearing a path in front of you. You have experienced a green wave. The concept is surprisingly simple. Instead of allowing every traffic light to operate on its own schedule, engineers synchronize multiple signals along a road so that vehicles traveling at a certain speed can move through several intersections without stopping. A driver leaves one intersection. The next light turns green just before they arrive. Then the next one, and the next. To the person behind the wheel, it feels almost like the city itself is guiding them forward. But creating that smooth flow requires a huge amount of planning. Traffic engineers study thousands of pieces of information. How many vehicles use this road each day? What times are busiest? Where do people usually turn? How long does it take traffic to travel between intersections? Even small details matter. A signal that changes 5 seconds too early or too late can cause vehicles to arrive at the wrong time and destroy the entire pattern. Modern cities often use massive traffic management centers, where engineers monitor roads across entire regions. Instead of physically visiting every intersection, they can communicate with traffic signals remotely, adjust timing schedules, and respond to changing conditions. During rush hour, the system may prioritize the direction with the most traffic. During a major event, it might change timing to help thousands of people leave an area faster. During construction, it can create temporary patterns to reduce congestion. The traffic light has transformed from a simple device that changes colors into a connected piece of city infrastructure. But one of the most impressive things traffic signals can do happens when something unexpected enters the road. Something like an ambulance. Imagine a paramedic racing through a city during an emergency. Every second matters. A traditional traffic light creates a dangerous problem. The ambulance may approach a red light with cars crossing in front of it. The driver has to slow down, check the intersection, and carefully move through traffic. That delay could cost valuable time. This is where emergency vehicle preemption comes into play. Many emergency vehicles are equipped with technology that can communicate with traffic signals. As an ambulance or fire truck approaches an intersection, it can send a signal requesting priority. The traffic light receives the message. The controller checks the situation, and if conditions allow, the intersection begins changing. Cross-traffic receives a red light. The emergency vehicle receives a green light. The path ahead is cleared. To anyone watching from the sidewalk, it looks almost magical. A red light simply turns green at exactly the right moment. But behind that moment is a carefully coordinated exchange between moving vehicles and roadside computers. This technology has saved countless seconds in emergencies. And in a situation where every second matters, those seconds can make a difference. However, traffic lights are becoming even more advanced. The next generation of intersections is moving beyond simply detecting vehicles. They're beginning to predict them. Traditional traffic signals react to what is happening. A car arrives, the sensor detects it, the light changes. But newer systems are attempting to understand what is likely to happen next. Using machine learning and artificial intelligence, some traffic systems can analyze patterns from thousands of vehicles and adjust timing automatically. They can recognize that a particular road becomes crowded every weekday at 5 p.m. They can notice that a sports stadium creates unusual traffic patterns after events. They can detect when one accident has caused vehicles to reroute through nearby streets. Instead of waiting for congestion to happen, they can prepare for it. This is part of a larger shift toward what engineers call
Adaptive traffic control. The idea is simple. A city should not have traffic lights that follow the same rules every day. A city should have traffic lights that understand the city itself. But as these systems become more connected and more intelligent, they create a new challenge: security. A traffic light may seem harmless, but controlling transportation infrastructure means controlling how millions of people move. Modern intersections are no longer isolated machines. Many are connected to city networks. And whenever something becomes connected, it creates new possibilities and new risks. A traffic signal that can be updated remotely can also potentially be attacked remotely. That means engineers must constantly balance convenience with security. The future of traffic technology isn't just about making roads faster. It's about making them safer, more efficient, and more reliable. Because the ultimate goal has never been about creating a faster light. It's about creating a transportation system that works so smoothly, people don't even notice it. And perhaps that's the most impressive thing about traffic lights. The best technology is often the technology that disappears into the background. Every day, millions of people drive through intersections without thinking about the complex systems surrounding them. They don't see the sensors buried beneath the pavement. They don't see the computers inside the roadside cabinets. They don't see the networks connecting thousands of signals together. They simply see a red light, then a yellow light, then a green light. But behind those three colors is more than a century of engineering, innovation, and problem solving. A simple idea that began with a person standing in the street directing traffic has evolved into a global network of intelligent machines quietly managing the movement of humanity. The next time you stop at an intersection, take a moment to look around. That ordinary traffic light above you isn't just a signal. It's a computer, a sensor, a communication device, and one small piece of the enormous technological system that keeps the modern world moving. Because sometimes, the most advanced technology isn't found in a laboratory or a spaceship. Sometimes, it's sitting above the road, waiting for you to move.
If you were at all interested throughout this video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and stay tuned for more videos just like this one. Have a good one, and stay hungry.